everyone, and welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel. You're about to watch a review video, myself and Alex Connors. Just wanted to throw a note in here. You may hear a lot of banging happening at the end of the video. It's because my office is right next to the front door, and next door decided that they wanted to be the bailiffs during the review, and they wanted to get their ball back from in the back garden. So instead of asking like nice people, hammered the crap out of my door. So I had to end it quite quickly, so I might as well throw it in at the moment. So as usual, if you enjoy the reviews with Alex, everyone enjoys the reviews with Alex, please like and subscribe. We're gaining momentum subscription-wise, so it'd be great if you have enjoyed the video. Just drop us a like, drop us a subscription. If anyone that you want us to interview in the future, we've got a few in the pipeline. The DP's just interviewed RJ Singh, so that should be coming out at some point this next decade. But yeah, without further ado, let's roll on to the review with Alex Connors. Hello everyone, and welcome back to the HCW YouTube channel. My name is RateWrestle, and today we've got another UK Indie Spotlight show, which is going to be a review on Kamikaze Pro Live, June 2nd at the Collingwood Centre. And once again, we've got the face of HCW, Alex Connors. How are you doing?
And I think soon to be, and if not already, the face of Kamikaze Pro Live. I think that's a title that I've earned, and I don't want to demand that you call me by it, but it feels disrespectful that you're not bringing it up already. You know very well that I've been trying to prove that I am the face of Kamikaze Pro Live, but after this most recent show, that's a title that I've earned.
When we get to your match, I'll very much discuss that. I won't give any spoilers, but I'll show you which side of the fence I'm on at that point. But yeah, so we were at the Collingwood Centre June 2nd, and it was a very good crowd at the Collingwood Centre, and
Yeah.
decent showing. It was quite full.
Yeah, Collingwood Centre is obviously one of the most loyal and repeated venues for Kamikaze, so the crowds do just build and build. But this one was packed. Yeah, it was really good, and it was really good to see loads of returning faces and new faces. I think it is really great that Kamikaze keeps revisiting these when they're still doing a bit of expansion and testing out new venues. We basically had 2 new venues in the past 2 months, and yet we're still always back in the Collingwood Centre, so that's really good to see.
Yeah, and it's always a good venue to be as like a hometown one, except for the Meadway, which was years ago. The Collingwood Centre's pretty much been the repeat pattern. So we'll kick off with Maximus Sakori versus Samuel Hughes. So luckily I'd finished work like half an hour to 40 minutes prior to the show, and I made it as Samuel Hughes making his entrance, so I didn't miss a thing, which is nice.
It's just nice of you to just turn up, to be honest. So.
Yeah, I do try. Not really. But yeah, so Maximus versus Samuel Hughes. So Maximus return match after his injury, and Samuel Hughes hadn't fought at the last show as well, so this kind of return for him as well. So this kicked off in a pretty much like a one-upmanship. Sam trying to prove he's the better wrestler, and Maximus obviously being the sports entertainer he is. Started really well. Maximus kind of outworked Sam. He showed this amazing like jump up face buster. It was like for any mark of WWE, it was the good old fashioned Billy Gunn Astor up, which was great. But he did like a jump up of it, which was really well. Sam took over from that point, and Maximus tried to get a bit of momentum in, but he kept getting cut off by Sam. And he did a really nice Samoan drop out of nowhere, just a pick up crop Samoan drop. He was following this up from a few big strikes, which was he really was enjoying this fight at that point. Okoro kept going towards an Olympic slam, and Sam kept breaking out of this with any kind of tactic he's throwing out, so the eye rakes and so forth like that. He then tried to taking the turnbuckle off. Referee weren't having any of that. While the ref was trying to get the turnbuckle back on, Sam tried to grab a cane. Ref couldn't try to stop that, but then out of nowhere, Maximus picked up the win with the Olympic Slam. So Maximus has kind of proved that he's not like a flash in the pan fluke win with the second big win against like Samuel Hughes.
Yeah, we always talk about, or at least I've definitely brought up the race to be the face of Kamikaze 2.0, much like I'm the face of Kamikaze Pro Live. And I think this race has been heated up with Maximus because Edgar Adams, Nate Riley, two fantastic guys who've had great showings, and I'm sure we'll talk about them more as the podcast goes on. But Maximus has come in and he's unbeatable so far. He just seems to pick up win after win against the odds. It's disappointing for Sam. I think Sam's been really entertaining and also really on his game since he's had this character development, and I hope he gets more success from it because we did see a good burst of success. But for Maximus, it doesn't seem to matter who's in his way; he can't be stopped. And "Are you not sports entertained?" is probably one of my favourite lines of any character we're ever going to see. But Maximus, he takes it very seriously. It's more than just persona for the fans. Being a modern day gladiator is his way of life, and it's paying off for him, win after win. And who's going to be the first person to stop him?
Yeah, definitely. He's a good show, and has said like people might have thought like his first matchup, he took advantage of Luke with the roll up. So is he going to follow up with the second matchup? And he was quite I wouldn't say dominant, but he had a very good showing. And I think what the trouble with Samuel Hughes at the moment is when he first turned his back on the fans, he started to cheat a lot. And I think people have cottoned on that he cheats, and he's struggling to cheat in matches now. So he needs to he needs to kind of go back to the middle ground. It's probably
I think that's an excellent point. The first few times it happened, especially those first 2 or 3 matches, it was a real blindside to those opponents, and he was facing people who had friendship and respect for him. So it's even more of a blindside. Maximus Sakori, he has no past relationship with Samuel Hughes. He doesn't really care whether Sam's on the fan side or not. He's not trying to win him back or anything like that. He's just trying to win the match. So I think you're right. And I also think Sam's almost sometimes trying too hard to wind up the crowd rather than just get that cheap blind side and pick up the win.
Yeah. And I rate this 2.25 stars. It was quite slow placed matchup. As I said, like Maximus did pick up a good win. So we'll kick off straight into the second match of the show, which was Nate Riley, who has been on a losing streak, but obviously he's been facing some tough opponents, like yourself, Therese, picking up the win via that Luke, and then George, and then going straight to Kay Jutler, a former Kamikaze Pro champion, and a starlet of the main roster shows. So this was always going to be a tough outing for Nate, but he did really well. So Nate I don't know if Kay doesn't really underestimate people, but Nate kind of used his speed straight away and threw Kay Jutler off completely. Within first few seconds, he went for a shotgun drop kick on Kay, and Kay just rolled out completely and was like, "What is this?"
Yeah. Although for me, I think what maybe surprised Nate and was Nate's downfall is Kay was faster than he was expecting. So you make a good point with that opening. Nate's flying in. He was really fast for the opening few minutes. But I don't think he really managed to catch Kay Jutler. As you mentioned there, Kay moved from that drop kick. And that wasn't the first time. The whole opening time when Nate was trying to pick up the pace and throw off the bigger man, it's always impossible to realize when you look at Kay Jutler, who's the body of a bodybuilder, that he's also lightning fast in his own right. And although Nate might have been a touch quicker, he wasn't so much quicker that he ever managed to take Kay Jutler entirely out of his game.
Yeah, and obviously the veteran style of Kay, that he knew that Nate was a bit quicker, so he kind of just stopped straight away, rolled on when if you can't really do anything if you're outside the room.
Killed the momentum there.
So he did it a few times at that point. Nate had a few close pins. He tried to catch him off guard at that point. But then Kay, out of nowhere, just lariated his head off and took control at that point. Quick offense from Giant Kay at that point, proving that, Nate isn't overly quicker than him. Soupy tried to do a few things. Super kick forearm block from the dive, which was great. So Nate tried to dive through the ropes. Kay cut him off. He did manage to get a dive on later. So normally when people go to the well the second time, they struggle the second time, but Nate kind of caught Kay off the guard at that point. Kay used, I don't know if you would class it as like a cheating offense, but it's probably a smart offense. Nate went to the top rope. Kay just dived on the ropes and knocked him, and obviously he groined himself. People would see that as kind of like a cheap way, but you know, if you're on the top ropes, it's high risk. And Kay used that to his advantage. Went for a suplex, followed by a Falcon Arrow, which Nate kicked out of, which really surprised me.
Very
like,
impressive moment. Yeah.
no one kicks out of the Falcon Arrow from Kay Jutler, so a really big surprise. He then had enough at this. He hit a massive powerbomb on Nate Riley, like full on, like painful powerbomb. Went for a second Falcon Arrow and picked up the win. Rated that 2 3/4. Really enjoyed it. It was the kind of
This was absolutely one of my favorite matches. You're hugely right about the Falcon Arrow. Obviously, I rarely lose matches ever, anywhere. But the one time I have been straight up pinned in a singles kamikaze action was by that Falcon Arrow from Kay Jutler. So I know full well that it's a devastating move, and to see Nate Riley kick out was a huge kudos to him. Also, another moment that I felt blew my absolute mind, and it's hard to describe it to people listening at home. Nate Riley face down, flat, completely prone. Kay Jutler picks him up. He goes for a deadlift German, which is impressive in its own right.
Yeah.
And he fully rotates Nate Riley back onto his face. Like, that's an insane amount of power from Kay. It's tough enough to get somebody from a German onto their face, although I'm sure we've all seen it. Somebody like Taz on Kurt Angle, that's the moment we're thinking of. But to do that from a prone, face-down opponent, it's not even on all fours. He was just flat out, and Kay just flipped him all the way, the full rotation back onto his face. That, for me, was a mind-blowing moment. The superplex into the Falcon Arrow was a really incredible moment as well, and the fact Nate kicked out. So another really impressive showing for Nate. He's the opposite of Max right now, though, where he's facing all these tough opponents, but who's going to be the one he finally manages to pick up the win on?
Yeah, so he, as I said, like, it's not like he's on a losing streak, but he's facing top contenders of Kamikaze Pro, so it's kind of like, you know, baptism of fire is kind of probably the term of that. And Kay still proves that, like, he's kind of a gatekeeper of Kamikaze, you know.
Excellent role for him.
Yeah. So we'll follow this up with a tag team match, the first of 2 on the night, which was the new tag team to Kamikaze Pro of Will Stevens and Astor. A lot of weirdness with them when they first debuted, and it's kind of like they're getting used to Stevens trying to control Astor being like a loose cannon. And they were facing the team of Kieran McQueen, who fought them last time around, lost, so he decided, you know what, I'll have a second crack at Astor, and he was teamed with JC. This was a different kind of matchup because Stevens Astor is a weird tag team because he's trying to control him, but Astor is a bit of a, as I said, like a loose cannon. And then McQueen and JC have never tag teamed together. JC is quite a newer opponent to the wrestling, and then obviously McQueen's a veteran around the area. The heels were on top for a lot of this match. The of Stevens and Astor, the obviously dominant tag team. So they worked a bit better this time around. Obviously, last show, it was a weird dynamic of that Stevens, the bigger guy, was getting double teamed by Kieran and Brandon, but this was kind of the opposite this time. Will kind of prove that, you know, the big guy was more dominant in this. Astor took McQueen out completely, out back, and you didn't see him again for a lot of this. Then Astor hit a tornado DDT, followed by a full-on, just powerful DDT from Will Stevens to pick up the win on JC. Straightforward tag team match. I rated it 2 1/4 stars. Stevens Astor on a roll, 2 wins.
Yeah, chaotic, messy was this match because both teams have a chaotic and messy sense to them. Kieran and JC having never teamed, and Astor and Will still being in this awkward, not quite on the same page, trying to control him. You're right. Last time it felt like Will was so trying to control Astor that he barely noticed his opponents, and he got caught again and again and again. He got really beaten down. This time, I thought Will Stevens was much more impressive. I also enjoyed the match a lot more. I thought they were a better unit. That being said, it still was a chaotic affair at times. Kieran McQueen, got to wonder why he picked JC because they didn't always gel. They didn't seem to be on the same page. Although I would say JC put in a better performance than he did against Luke Douglas. His offense looked crisp and clean. He just didn't look connected with Kieran at all. And so because of that, that's probably why they lost. Although you made an excellent point that Astor just dragged him away at the end, out the back, dragged him straight to hell, and we never saw him again. So then it was 2-on-1. That's obviously the deciding factor of the match, I think. A chaotic affair. Progress from everyone in this match, I would say. But maybe just not pairings that have quite clicked yet.
Yeah, so it's tough to say if Kieran will try and have a third crack at this team. It's probably best not, but Kieran is Kieran. He's a very much a determined young man.
And interesting who you think he could possibly go to next. It's weird to see where his alliances lie. He's previously been really good friends with Will Stevens, who's now set this monster Astor on him, so he's going the wrong way and he's been betrayed. So he's looking for friends and can't seem to find them. He can't seem to find that new team, that new dynamic. I thought him and Brandon were maybe better suited than him and JC, but didn't seem to pay off either way.
No. So we'll see where they come out from that. So we went straight to the first half main event, which was Man Like Therese, the Kamikaze Pro main champion, versus Edgar Adams. I really enjoyed this match. So Man Like Therese has took on a role of on the live shows. He just stifles out people's momentum straight away. Did it with Hassan the previous show. With Adams, obviously the speed demon. Stifled it completely. He was tried to chop them, man. Adams kept trying to chop Man Like Therese, trying a different kind of offense from the speed. But Therese just some massive hits on Edgar Adams, just like proper like KO blows. And at this point, Man Like Therese took on a weird kind of turn. He started mocking Edgar a lot of this match. Instead of stopping to like mock him, I think he's kind of had enough of Kamikaze pushing 2.0. Because Man Like Therese is original Kamikaze Dojo, and I think he's annoyed that, he was mocking 2.0. He was going, like I'm the main Kamikaze guys. You have people like Luke, me, and Sean Devine who are sitting next to in the crowd. We're the main Kamikaze kind of guys. Edgar then was picking up.
Before you carry on, so I think what you've just said is a really interesting point, because not only did Therese almost feel like the villain of the piece, and also not really the fan favorite, because the Kamikaze Pro live crowd, they're really behind these 2.0 guys. But also, I think what you saw there was the first drop, and to give something away, we're obviously recording this a week before the 10th anniversary, Kamikaze Pro's main show, and we've had another Kamikaze Pro live announced. I feel like Therese has incited quite a rivalry between Kamikaze 1.0 and Kamikaze 2.0. This felt like the inciting incident of something of a war that might well continue on one or both of those two shows. So if you're a Kamikaze fan and you're interested to see what 1.0 versus 2.0 is like, the next few shows, I think Therese pissed off a lot of the 2.0 guys, and we're going to get quite a rivalry between two sides. Whether you're a fan favorite or whether the crowd don't get on with you, I think representing 1.0 versus representing 2.0 is becoming way more of a passion than it was before.
Yeah, like you said, like when you get to watch this match when it's on demand, Therese was proper aggressive with it.
And he was representing 1.0 as well. He was saying that he was Kamikaze 1.0. He was really going for it. He was saying that the class of 1.0 is better than the class of 2.0. And I don't know whether or not Edgar will be the only one annoyed by that, or whether Nate, Matt, they'll all be lining up. JC.
And as I said, he was bringing up people like he brought up Luke Douglas within the middle of the match. Obviously they're completely different kind of guys. Yeah. Like Luke's against the fans, Man Like Therese is for the fans normally, but he was like, Luke Douglas, great wrestler, 1.0. Sean Devine said was sitting next to myself, and he was bringing up the younger talent there.
I think when we look back on it, and you think of when you're going through history class, and they teach you about all these treaties that were eventually broken leading up to world wars, and how was this inciting incident, I think Therese versus Edgar Adams was day one of the eventual build to this feud war rivalry between 1.0 and 2.0.
Yeah, and I look forward to it. There's always good to have, not I would say friendly competition, but it looked like it wasn't friendly. Edgar started to fight back at this point after the mocking. I think that was winding him up. That Therese was going via that. He was hitting a few more chops at that point. Did a really nice chair dive at that point as well. Hit a frog splash, so he was kind of bigging this up. Cut a strike back. Then Therese went to his main kind of offense. You had like the sit down power bomb. Edgar kicked out at that point. He was chopping Edgar at that point. I think he just decided he was against this whole movement. Started mocking him a bit more. Was just going like, "Where's your passion?" 2.0. You're supposed to be the big man at this, but there's no passion coming from you. You're just weak. Running kick. He hit a kick out at that point, and then a move I've not seen Therese hit. Which is kind of like the exclamation point. He hit a full-on like pole driver, but like a really grim-looking power driver, and that kind of stopped Edgar Adams in his thing. You don't normally see power drivers anymore, like that kind of the old school, just like drill power driver.
Yeah, we've seen one from Will Stevens a few shows back, but that's probably it in Kamikaze for a little while. It seemed to be a message as well from Therese that he wasn't using any of his signature maneuvers to win the match. He was using a move that is old school, maybe a bit more 1.0.
Yeah.
So that did seem like a message. Edgar, he had some great offense as well. Edgar hit a move in this match that was, simply put, a running kick. He ran from the corner, he hit enziguri'd, but on the fly. It was amazing. I've never seen Edgar hit before, but he really G'd up for it and smashed Therese in the face with all that energy and passion. There were a few clunky moments where there was scrappiness to this match in the center, which is odd because these are both very crisp and clean performers when they're on offense. Normally it feels like a flow, but that's just, I guess, what happens when both are trying to go for something and it doesn't quite pan out. I really love this match as well. Therese was hitting hard. Edgar Adams was, I thought he was showing that passion and fire, although Therese was trying to stomp it out of him. I don't think I ever believed Edgar was going to win. It felt like Therese had it. And I do think the crowd were very confused by this because they love Therese. They want to support Therese. He's the Kamikaze champ. And they also want to get behind the underdog and support him. So there was quite a mix of crowd reaction here.
Yeah, definitely. And I rated this 3.25 stars. Like, I really did enjoy it. So that was the end of the first half. And then we kicked off into the second half. So we kicked off with a tag team match, which was the first initiation for the actual live audience of the Jordans. So Chantal and Brandon, which they've gone with the very... not really, I can't think of the word, but they've just called themselves Team Jordan. Very... natural name was wrong.
Yeah, to the point.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted. And they were facing a team which of MJ Grayson and Luke Douglas, who supposedly now go by for one time only, I'm assuming, 21st Century Sinners. Just a combination of both guys.
I thought it was 21st Century Violence. Or maybe they changed their mind when they...
Well,
you know what? MJ goes by Icon of Sin and Art of Violence, so I guess they could do either.
Yeah, it could work either way. So these are two kind of, you would say, makeshift teams, but the Jordans are related, so it's kind of like, fighting from birth. So what happened at the start was they proved that, so they were outworking the 21st Century Sinners from the start. Like, there was a bit more like togetherness with them. Chantal was just delivering some brutal big kicks at the start, which she normally leaves to the end, where it's kind of like game over, but Chu was trying to finish it quick. Then Grayson went back to the kind of like the cheating ways of Chantal ran to the ropes, heel trip underneath to kind of take that away. So then Luke and MJ were on top from that point. They were working over Brandon more than Chantal, which is probably the smart thing to do. Chantal, the relentless champion, Brandon's making his way at the moment. So, I wouldn't say the weaker of the two, but like the one you would target. There was a few hot tags from this point. Chantal got in, was like a live wire at this point, but then they knew to stifle her straight away and they took over at that point again. There was a fun part for the fans where they all went out to the entrance side of it. Luke and MJ basically slammed Brandon and Vinny onto the stage. But while they were kind of celebrating that over, two big dives from the entrance from Chantal and Brandon, which were pretty cool to see. At that point, the heels took over back in the ring, and Luke Douglas has a fascination with the move, and he gets every tag team partner to do it. The chasing the dragon, lifting suplex followed by a super kick / kick to the back of the head, dropping. They kicked out of that. Then Chantal hit one of her bigger moves. I don't know if she's named it yet. We always bring it up, which is like the sit down drop. But there was a kick out of that, which was a big surprise. So there has been a couple of big kick outs in this show. Falcon Arrow that. Then they tried a super kick on Luke's team with a cradle, but there was a kick out from that point as well. So both teams were kicking out of big moves. But the Jordans ended up picking up the win with a frog splash from Brandon. Rated 3 stars. It was an enjoyable match. Two makeshift teams, but they all went hell for leather in the matchup.
Yeah, I think I was very happy to see the team of Luke and MJ. I think they suited each other quite well, and they have the more interesting team name. And they are, as far as Kamikaze Pro Live goes, that's people you're always going to see. Whereas Luke Douglas, he may be half of the tag champs, but you don't see his tag partner on Kamikaze Pro Live. So he needs some allies for Kamikaze Pro Live, and MJ Grayson, I think, is the perfect one. Though I would disagree with you earlier by saying that they're makeshift teams. The Jordans, they team a lot in training and in other shows. They definitely, they've not just trained together as siblings, they've trained as a team. So I think they probably had a lot more experience. It's just not very high profile. It's training matches, it's debut shows. And then when they get into higher profile stuff, they do prefer to go their separate ways. So I think that's probably a huge reason why they won. We definitely do need to get a name for Chantal's move. I tend to call it the Jig and Tonic from where I've seen it before, but I'm sure Chantal has a name for it herself. I enjoyed this match from what I saw. It was directly before mine, so I didn't get to see the whole thing, unfortunately. So I can't disagree with anything else you've said.
Yeah, obviously, because yours is just coming up, so you weren't really going to be focused on this match, Harley. But yeah, it was a fun match. Both teams worked really well, and it'd be nice to see both teams come back again. Maybe facing each other again. But we'll go into a match which you were probably invested in because you're in it. So it's yourself versus another debut with a debut in Ronnie G. So for anyone that's not seen Ronnie before, Ronnie is a live wire kind of charismatic character. Comes out really upbeat, trying to get everyone on his side. So this kicked off, which you launching your gear once again at someone. You've chased the other one out.
Did not fully survive the show thanks to the terrible work of our ring crew. So for once, you'd think Penny, the child, would be a terrible ring crew, and I'm often berating her for doing an awful job, but I missed Penny because Megan, the ring crew, was even worse. My stuff ended up getting smashed all over the place, and to be honest, I can't take it out on the fans of Kamikaze as much as I wish I could teach them to show some respect and be better people. So I'm just going to have to take it out on the ring crew of Kamikaze until they become a well-oiled machine and a focused and enlightened machine. It's for their own good, really.
Yeah, it sounds like it's going to be a struggle, though, judging by the last few times. So this kicked off with Ronnie showing an athletic side of that, a few slaps, trying to fire up over yourself, but obviously you kind of took him down, decided that wasn't going to happen. So you drop her a kick, hung up in the ropes, was really nice at that point as well. A urinagi on the apron, just absolutely a blistering urinagi on the apron. At this point, you kind of were just mauling him, I'm going to be honest. Ronnie was trying to get back into it, but you were kind of on top of the mauling him at that point. He fired up and hit a DDT. You follow the double stomps, and then you hit one of your signature moves at this, the pop-up knee. Ronnie just about kicked out at that point. He was a few fight backs with springboard start at that point. Nice belly to belly. You don't get to see that often anymore at Kamikaze Pro Live, so it was nice at that point. He then Olympic Slam pop up. There was a kick out at that point. A few roll ups. And then there was the running knee from yourself, and you picked up the win with you were going for the Crown of Thorns.
Running the Crown of Thorns combination has been successful against Nate, Edgar, and Ronnie G. I think what you pointed out at the start is that I was taking it quite intensely when I managed to get the opportunity, and there's a few reasons for that. First of all is that I personally, behind the scenes, have been calling Ronnie G secretly the best 2.0 trainee. So for those who have been impressed by Nate and Edgar and Maximus, and you absolutely should have been, they're way beyond their years already. Ronnie G might be even better than that. He is a sensation in training, and I was not happy to have drawn him as a debut because I knew how dangerous he could be. The second reason is, well, you were in the crowd, so you tell me, but it sounded to me like after a little bit of a muted crowd and some heroes against heroes that they didn't know what to do with, the crowd came absolutely unglued for my match with Ronnie G, including very basic stuff like Ronnie G doing a leapfrog or hopping into the ring. They went wild for these tiniest things, even if I'd already done them, which seemed like an insult.
Yeah. And to add more to that, I rate this 3 3/4 stars. I really, really enjoyed this match. It was definitely the match of the night for myself. And as you said, you are the face of Kamikaze at the moment. You're putting on best matches.
Despite your obvious biases in rating, which we've discussed many times, it's still obvious that I am Kamikaze Pro Live's most consistent performer, most successful performer, and I mold the Kamikaze Pro Live shows these days, and this was the perfect example on a show that maybe was a little below the level of the previous show. We've talked about Kamikaze Pro Live getting better and better and better. I thought maybe this one just hit a little bit of a speed bump apart from my match. So that makes all the difference. I actually think you've got part of your note-taking wrong. Obviously, not a surprise to anybody. I don't think that was an Olympic slam we're referring to there. I think that was the move Murphy's Law, if you know, from the pump handle and then up and spin. When I hit it, I like to call it the Connors Codex. But I will compliment you on pointing out the belly-to-belly, because that was absolutely fantastic from Ronnie G.
Yeah.
I thought when I got hooked for it that this would be a small sort of takedown, and I was launched into the sky. And honestly, I had absolutely no control of where I was going. I was impressed while I was in midair from that belly to belly until the landing. I was like, Ronnie G, secretly the best wrestler in Kamikaze Dojo 2.0. And then I hit the deck and got annoyed at him again.
Yeah, and before we go to the main event, the question I need to ask is, where is your title shot?
Where is my title shot? Obviously, that's the question I was asking at the end of that night. I don't want to be the first to say it, but I think Therese has a very good point. Kamikaze are pushing 2.0. They are very proud of their new students, as they should be for the level that they're competing at. But Nate Riley has a title shot. Hassan has a title shot. Where's my title shot? I have won every match, really, apart from a debut and a match with Jutler. I've won every singles match. I don't know how many people I have to run through before they give me George. How many people do I have to pin? And how many times do I have to have the best match of the night before I get a Kamikaze Pro Live title shot? And really, I actually don't think that they are pushing Kamikaze 2.0 here. And I do think Therese has got some good points. I think Kamikaze are protecting George because they're scared that when they make that title shot, George is no longer going to be the Pro Live champion.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to it. As I said, you've had really good matches, and I feel like you deserve a title shot now. But we'll see what happens. Probably not.
Well, if Kamikaze don't give me one, I will be forced to take matters into my own hands and make one happen. And no matter how much of a loyalty there is between Kamikaze management and George, he can't hide from me forever.
No, because they're running out of people we can face, really. So we'll go on to the main event, which was George Lloydan versus Hassan Ali. So Hassan won the famous mystery battle royal. Maybe you need to win one of them.
Oh, I don't get a title shot because I didn't win musical chairs. Grow up, Kamikaze.
Hopefully that's never seen again. But yeah, so George versus Hassan. So Hassan, this is the biggest opportunity he's had on Kamikaze Pro facing the live champion.
And not just Kamikaze Pro. This is the biggest match of
he's
Hassan's
had,
career.
yeah. And you could tell he was, you wouldn't say slightly, you could see it in his face, he was slightly nervous about this. He wasn't as, Hassan has ability of crowd pandering, kind of get the crowd.
Yeah.
He was too focused on George at this point. And the crowd wasn't normally proper behind him because he's bringing them into it, but he was too focused on George. So this kicked off with a kind of test of strength, which Hassan is always going to win that. Hassan is a big boy.
And he's stronger than he looks. I know I've said this on your podcast before, but it is worth bringing up. He's not maybe as big as Jutler, but I think he might just be as strong. He's way stronger than he looks, and when he gets hold of you, you are always taken by surprise if you've ever been in the ring with Hassan at how much stronger he was than you were even preparing for in your match prep.
Yeah, and he's got like that. He's very obviously he's not a tall guy either, so it's kind of like centered strength as well, which probably puts it against it. He was on top of George at that point. There was they were trying a few shoulder tackles, so George was trying to shoulder tackle Hassan, which was never going to work. And then a bit of momentum at the point of which kind of worked in Hassan's favour. So normally a lot of wrestlers kind of try and showboat. George does it a lot where guy runs into corner and tries to do the leap over where he kind of jumps on the rope. Hassan kind of caught him on the way down, which kind of worked in Hassan's favour, and George's kind of showmanship didn't help with that point. Hassan showed a few suplex slams at that point, but George started to get on top with a few big strikes, which you wouldn't expect. Coming like George is a big striker, but when you're facing like someone the strength of Hassan, you wouldn't think he'd be going to that kind of barrel.
I think with the up and over, we can maybe not just chalk it down to showmanship for George. I think you've simplified this a little bit because normally if you're running at a turnbuckle and you obviously don't want to crash into it, and your opponent is running very close behind you, you can throw them off guard by going up and over because your feet come flying up, they take a step back, and then before they know it, you've landed behind and you carry on from this neutral position. I think maybe George's error here is almost getting used to facing faster people who would be running in right behind him, who would be thrown off by this. Hassan took his time. He followed George a few steps behind. He waited to see where George would go, and then he took advantage.
Yeah. This was followed by a few nice strokes by George. There was like a springboard elbow, which is always great. Reminds me of Chijiru. It's always think of that. He was fired up with some big bulldog slams. He was trying to have a few running strokes at this point. Hassan. George hit a fantastic dive, but then, talking of fantastic dives, Hassan Ali hit the most monumental dive I've ever seen in my life. Hassan Ali, you'd expect, big guy, second rope, diving. He jumped over, it was like a Mike Awesome kind of like, my God, George was just like, oh no. And he full on landed on George, like there was no prisoners there. Very, very good. Hassan then hit, I don't know the technical term, I know the Matt Cardona lowrider kind of move, which he hit onto him, kick out at that point. A few like near falls. Hassan was picking up momentum at this point. He was kind of like the nerves kind of went out of him. I think he was going like, this is my opportunity, I need to kind of take at this. Brainbuster near fall from George. Then George went for the 450. Hassan was smart enough to get his knees up. You know, when someone hits a 450 and the knees, there's no way of them stopping that momentum hitting down. He hit a big German catch at that point. Then Hassan went for his big mover, like a super full-on spear, but George kicked out, which I think kind of was the end for Hassan. Like that's his big move, and George kind of stuffed him. And he hit like a spike kind of pedigree, is the way I've put it at that point, and then he hit the 450 because Hassan was kind of done at that point. Picked up the win, so George, big win. Hassan, at the end of it, he was fully into it, but I feel like George kind of stole for him by kicking out his big move.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of experience there in multiple ways. So the spike pedigree move you're on about, that's normally George is going for a tiger driver.
Yeah.
Hassan, he's stronger, he's heavier. So that's some improvisation from George there. That's good experience. When George kicked out of the spear, Hassan's never really faced a person who would do that. George, he's faced people who kicked out of his finisher, and he knows, okay, get back on it, hit them with something else. That's good experience. Also, in this match, George was facing another fan favourite, and this is now, thanks to Kamikaze's maybe protection of their little baby boy champion here, the fourth in recent succession. Apart from MJ Grayson, George has faced Chantel, George has faced Nate Riley, George has faced Therese. These are all fan favourites. These are all people that the crowd get behind. So Hassan was having to deal with the crowd being split. He's not as used to it. George, he's got that experience. This is the fourth or fifth time he's done that this year. So those are three real good factors of experience that George really had over Hassan, and I think that definitely showed. I also think the opening of the match from Hassan was sloppy. I thought he was really nervous, but it was even more impressive that he kept it together. And I think if Hassan looks back on this match, he'll be kicking himself for not getting further ahead in the opening, because to mess up the opening and get the rest of the match back together, that's harder than messing up at the end. So I thought it was a really impressive performance from Hassan after the first few minutes, at which point you think George is already a step ahead, and apart from the last few minutes, at which point George's experience kicked in. The centre was very scary from Hassan and showed a lot of dominance. Another impressive move, pop-up Emerald Flosion, crazy power move from Hassan. So yeah, really strong. Once again, though, I don't know if I ever really believed, apart from the spear, that George wasn't going to figure out a way to solve the puzzle of Hassan. George has had much bigger problems in the past.
Yeah, definitely. And I rate that 3.25 stars. Good match at the end. I said Hassan struggled at the start, but it was a good match at the end. And that's the end of the show. So once again, your match was definitely match of the night. Really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah, where's my title shot? What do I have to do? Who do I have to beat?
Yeah, so hopefully Kamikaze are listening. So Kamikaze Pro Live 35 is going to be July 16th at the Stetchford Social Club. Tickets are now on sale on Ringside, which I have in the description below. But yeah, that's the end of the review and a decent showing from everyone there. But yeah, thanks once again for coming on the show, Alex.
No problems, and we'll also see you at Kamikaze's 10th anniversary this Friday. Talk to you then.
Excellent. See you all.